You're listening to Accents, a radio show for literature, art, and culture. I'm your host, Katerina Stoikova, and my guest is poet Leatha Kendrick. Hi, Leatha, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, Katerina?
Doing great. Welcome to the show. Very excited to hear your new work or whatever else you want to share with us. A few biographical notes. Leatha Kendrick writes poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction, and has published 5 collections of poetry, as well as articles and essays and short fiction. She just published her 5th collection, and Luckier. And Leatha lives and writes in Lexington, Kentucky. And I'm going to add to that she's one of the beloved teachers at the Carnegie Center. Everybody wants to take a class with Leatha. I've taken a number of them, and I've loved every single one of them.
Well, thank you. I think I've got longevity on my side. I've been around a long time, but I do love it. So yeah, thank you.
So what have you been writing? What would you like to share with us?
Well, I thought I'd read some new poems. I started writing when we were shut in, and I had no expectation that I would actually continue to write or be able to write. But I wrote a few poems in March, and then I wrote some poems in April, mostly because for many years now, George Lyon and I have written together during Poetry Month, written a poem a day, even if it's only a couple of lines, more just to keep ourselves attuned to that kind of attention that happens when you are thinking, oh, I'm going to have to write something, and you don't think you can, and when you've written it you don't think it's anything, but sometimes looking back it's more than what you thought. So that's what I'm going to be reading. They're all things in process, all things really still out there to for me to consider and work on. So reading them is another part of the process of seeing what they sound like. Is there will they stick? Will they last? Or are they something that, oh, well, I'm glad to share it, but I might not do anything else with it.
Well, how exciting. Thank you so much, Leatha. I'm looking forward to hear what you brought today.
Okay. Well, I think I'll start with a poem that I wrote near the end of March. And it's sort of centered on the problem that I think a lot of us are having with sleeping. It's called Nights in Quarantine. And so here it is, Nights in Quarantine. It was dark. Each of us islanded, sleeping, not sleeping, standing at the sink, the forgotten water running, the glass in our hand. Nothing visible to orient to except the edge of the bed, the bare hallway floor, dim in the nightlight's small glow. It felt as if this was all we could know. So we lay down, stared at the ceiling, our breath the only moving thing, we thought, until the cat turned twice and licked her hind foot, or the dog sighed and settled deeper in. Some got up and read. Some of us, God forbid, turned on the news, as if the talking heads could talk us out of this. The rest waited, and at last the planet's shift beneath us signaled no more hope for this night's sleep. We made our tea or coffee, the sky shiny black beyond the panes, but thinning somehow, the impossible blue materializing, bringing the street and the sidewalk back, giving us edges and eggs and avenues, the blossoming trees, the mockingbirds swooping in pairs, bringing tomorrow. So that poem came after a night. It's one of those poems where you just kind of write down what's happening moment by moment as you are trying to deal with something and thinking, I don't know how to deal with this. So just describing and following the words to to those mockingbirds that had been swooping around every morning. This next one was written early in April when it was becoming clear that one way to survive is to take a lot of walks, or at least for us. And if the evidence outside my window is true, then maybe a lot of other people are doing it too. So we did a lot of walking, and walking is slow. You see things that you don't see the rest of the time. Definitely you don't see them from a car. And around the 2nd or 3rd of April, there was a prompt from the Carnegie Center, Carnegie from the Couch, that Sarah Combs had, they put up. It was one of Sarah Combs's prompts, which is to write a letter to something that couldn't write you back. And that sparked this poem, that and the walking. So it's called Ode to Not Being in Charge. Dear weedy verge, dear wasted edge, unkempt along the sidewalk, thank you for your gift of bloom. Speedwell, field pansies, sunburst dandelion, dear sturdy crown of gold, exploding in seed stars, dear delicate faces lifted to the light, dear blue eyes tucked in rampant vining. This is my letter back to you. This is my thanks to those who let you be, to benign neglect that flowers without expectations. Every one of these poems, in a way, was just a way to take another step, like putting one foot in front of another. And now that I'm kind of reading them together, I realize how grateful I am that I did just try to write something down. A lot of what I wrote, though, were haiku. Not that I'm any kind of haiku expert, but I'm fascinated with the way that haiku just touches on something and lets it go and allows it to be what it is. I love the ones that capture something just imagistically. A lot of mine tend to be a little bit narrative, as you'll see. So this was a haiku sequence that came out. Some days a bunch of haiku would come out. This one is about 6 haiku, I guess, that from the 4th of April haiku sequence. Travel forbidden, the family unites. Weekly visits via Zoom. How can this be? We used to see each other once a year. Miracles. Viral haiku rage through the family. 3-line bridges connect us. Stuck here with everything I put off for years, what will I discover? Only 3 weeks in, silence is filled with birdsong, hours with learning, slow. I'm having trouble understanding there's no rush to finish anything. So the longer time went on, toward the end of the month, the poems began to get long again. And I think it was partly because I just was losing track of myself and trying to sort of grab hold of something. So the next 2 poems sort of speak to that condition, and they're from the last couple days in April. So they're very, very new, but something that I'm playing with. The first one is called Reflection on Unmarked Days. All day I wander, picking up a plate, noticing the mirrors veiled all at once in dust. My list of things to do untouched, when all these years the list as bulwark held away the howl. The list as house to shelter me from time is now become the house unsheathed, mere 2x4s, a frame that stops no air or hour. And I, a ghost, haunting the light, rising at one edge of the house, failing at the other end. And this one, when I was kind of wondering how things might add up when we look back on this, or when history looks back on it, This one is still sort of growing. It's called Ledger. Ledger. My shoes are wearing through. My hair is falling in my face. Geese in flight, honking overhead, seem to have more purpose and more grace than I do, walking the dog again, circling the house where we've been sheltering in place for eons now, or possibly 6 weeks. I could stand to live this way for a year, I think, with books and windows, empty rooms, more than enough food, the monthly check that is the boon of having reached my age. Montaigne retreated to his fastness to essay himself against the yet unsaid, to see what he knew, test his ignorance. I've got ignorance to test. Rituals I might enforce to shape the hours. These walks, for instance, wearing out my shoes, giving me some lines to come home and set down. Even as economies collapse, food pantry lines snake for hours and miles. The beaten child hides or tries to under the sink, and everyone grows testier on Zoom. An artist on the Sunday news touts the room these times allow, space enough to unleash the muse, or organize your space, or bake some bread. What will history tell of what was unleashed in the long stillness of these days? What balance might the future find between the gain, the spices alphabetized, our kinder selves, more art, and the toll of spirits maimed, the livelihoods and lives we simply lost? And this last one is was actually written first early in all of this, and I had envisioned, I guess when I wrote it, it was the middle of March. I called it Pandemic Poem 1. Thought I'd write a lot of these, but didn't end up being able to do that. So this is Pandemic Poem on contemplating Bradford pears blooming in late March. It's in 3 sections. 1. At the edge of the window frame blossoms the white of dirty snow, ragged as breath after sobs. The tree itself, festooned in blooms, half a world away from where it's meant to grow, thrives here, rampant along roadsides, in vacant lots. It supplants the known tree. Nothing native here contains it, no limiting pest, no corrective season to dampen its spread. This is history repeating itself. Each time we cross the barrier seas to plant ourselves in new territory, we were the exotic aliens who ravaged what lived there before us, reshaped things. 2. Bind up a woman's feet. She'll walk, though painfully. She'll walk a mincing step. This tree flaunts its bloom sought and sold to new homeowners, quick and easy beauty. I confess I bought a pear tree for our new built house and loved its sudden height, abundant blossoming, until it split, weak wood, and blocked the walk. What I'm trying to say is that we make mistakes, and misplaced flowers, diseases, misshapen feet. What I'm trying to say is suffering and even death rule for a while. Slow to learn, we do understand at last what it is we need to stop, what we can leave behind, what will not come back, and what won't go away. Will be with us now, like the pear tree outside, as long as things grow here. 3. The ragged blooms that set this poem in motion, innocent of origins, open white coronas, offer their beauty to make the seed that keeps their kind alive. That's it.
Thank you so much, Leatha. These are lovely, wonderful. I hope you write more. Awesome.
Well, as long as we have people like you who are willing to hear and eager to accept the poems that are coming, we'll have more poems. So thank you. Thank you for being there.
I appreciate you, Leatha. I appreciate your work, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so
All
much for
right.
coming, Connections, to read poems.
Thanks so much. It was great to be here. So good to see you.
Good to see you too.